Good morning. I'm Anne Marie Hohenberger, Marketing and Communications Director with the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce, and this is the Future of Talent. We are so grateful to Jenny and the Office of Economic Development for inviting the Chamber to partner on this series of events. We're here to talk about recruitment today. We've got a fantastic panel of folks who are going to be sharing their best practices, their experiences, ups and downs from a variety of perspectives. But we also have a variety of perspectives in the room, which we're really excited about, and would like to kick things off today by doing a quick round of introductions so that our panelists know what you're looking to hear about today, so that we know what kind of role you have in relation to recruitment. And so, so we'll do a quick round of introductions, and we'll try to keep it short. So we'd love to hear your name, what organization you're with, very briefly what your role is as far as recruiting, and then one thing you hope to take away today. Name, organization, recruiting role, and takeaway. So I'm Anne Marie, Charlottesville Chamber. I do not have a direct role in recruiting, but it's important to our business community, so it's important to me. And what I'm hoping to take away today is some stuff that we can share with our chamber members. And Anthony, can I put you on the spot to start?
Sure, yeah. Anthony Spatafor. My company is Pathfinders, career change for professionals going into a whole new field. So my recruiting concern is how do you get around not having all the background to a profession that you have the aptitude for, but not the formal training for.
Thank you.
Keith Grooms with the Office of Economic Development. I'm the Entrepreneur Program Specialist. And I'm just here to hear what more of my department actually has to offer and things, you know. Thanks, Bert.
Good morning. Oh, you swear, I don't know which way you were going. Good morning. My name is Shawn Batson. I'm with Virginia Career Works Piedmont. I'm the operations manager and I also work with the Career Pathways team. And I just hope to bring back some tips and practices that I can share with the businesses that we encounter on a daily basis.
Good morning, I'm Chris Engel with the Office of Economic Development. Delighted you all are here. We're helping sponsor along with the chamber, so appreciate that. I'm hopeful that you all learn things that are helpful to you in your recruiting through this process. Workforce is continuing to be the #1 challenge that we hear from local business.
Good morning, I'm Sasha Tripp and I own Storyhouse Real Estate. So we're a residential real estate firm and we don't do a ton of recruiting, but I'm always trying to find out what I don't know because I've never really been in an HR world or a hiring world. And then I'm also the current chair of the Chamber of Commerce board this year. Thanks for having me.
I'm Matt Johnson. I'm with the Office of Economic Development and here just to participate. And as we engage with business, it's sort of like what Anne Marie said, there's workforce is a big challenge for businesses. And so just want to make sure that we have some ideas that we can pass along and some resources we can point them in the direction of.
I'm Ariel Brutter. I'm with the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center, and I am also here to just find out some more information so I can advise my small businesses on recruiting.
I'm John Woodworth. I'm with LD&B Insurance out of Harrisonburg, Virginia, and we have about 60 employees. So my purpose here is a little dooful to take back to my HR staff some tips on what we can do to enhance our recruiting. But I also am a benefits consultant. So, you know, typically to retain and attract top talent, you want to have a benefits package, but engagement with that package is also important. So that's what I'm looking for, some ideas on leveraging that.
Great. I'm Graham Sharp, Director of Operations at ArcWise Wealth. We help people align their resources with their purpose to inspire generous living. I'm responsible for HR, so I'm always hiring. So I'm looking to glean anything that I can in that process. And I'm also really concerned about the ecosystem opportunity for employment. I'm always looking for diverse candidates, so I'm looking for how to do that better.
Oh, my name is Juan Diego Wade. I'm with Albemarle County Career Center, and what I like to learn from this experience is that every day in the Career Center we get individuals, companies that contact us about hiring and looking for ideas, and so I hope to get some information to help the clients that we help in the Career Center.
Heidi Gilman-Bennett. I am here actually writing the article to summarize today's event, but I'm also
My background's in education, K-12 education, and I do a lot of recruiting of volunteers. So I am eager to learn from you all.
Good morning. I'm Janie Cast. I'm the managing director at Allyn Partners. I'm also the chair of membership and programs for Charlottesville SHRM, which is our local HR chapter, if you're not familiar with us. In terms of my recruiting role, Allyn Partners is a small business. We don't do a lot of recruiting, but we do advise a lot of our clients on recruiting and sometimes support their recruiting efforts. And I'm always looking to learn new things in that area. I'm also always looking for great speakers for Charlottesville SHRM. So I'm sort of here in both capacities.
Good morning, I'm Jessica, I'm with Design Electric. We are a commercial electrical contractor and I handle the marketing. So the reason I'm here today is just to try to learn what I can and get some out of the box ideas to market for talent. We're always looking for, apprentices, electricians, and, to work in the field.
I'm Katie Delaney. I'm the talent director at Central Virginia Partnership for Economic Development, so the regional economic development office here. I work on talent attraction and retention, but specifically for retention, I'm trying to help keep UVA grads in the area. So anything I can learn on both sides of retention, what to tell students in terms of interviewing and retention, but also businesses that the partnership works with.
So I'm Lisa Wynn, I'm with Castle Hill Gaming. So I do HR and business compliance. So I'm kind of just getting more engaged. I just went to my first SHRM chapter meeting last week. So just trying to learn new things, trying to make connections. We're really starting to get more involved out here to kind of just get more involved. So just learning where I can.
And hi, sorry I'm late. Coming down 29, there's usually some kind of an accident, so of course there was. I'm Mary Jane Skidmore. I am with the Department of Social Services. I'm one of the deputy directors. And we have a difficult time recruiting a lot of our service workers because of the requirements of the job and quite frankly, our salary. So sometimes we can't compete with some of the other agencies that can offer higher salaries. So, and in my division, we compete with a lot of other localities because we're super busy right now on the benefit side with Medicaid unwinding. So anyone that has an ounce of experience is like snapped up really quickly. So you have to be quick and you have to be able to get them in as quick as you can before somebody else picks them up. So the retention part is, I think that we're pretty good at that because we're offering remote work. So a lot of folks just love the remote work, but kind of keeping the employees engaged is another thing that we struggle with as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I heard a lot of good conversations as we're coming in this morning, but I did want to make sure that we have a lot of opportunity to interact with each other today. And before we get started with the panel, I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes. And I want you to turn to somebody that you haven't already met or haven't already talked with today and just get to know each other a little bit better. No agenda, just hello and talk about yourselves. So 3 minutes, go.
So I see them with like,
Location. We don't have any burgers down. Attract and training. Like it's challenging.
Yeah, I want So right now, I'm approaching my.
When I get it.
A lot of people that come from more on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to learn to take my dog.
Yeah, it's great. That was it's a big conversation.
Yeah.
So I've never done anything like this. How long have you been with, yeah. Maybe there's more money in the front. Can you do this annually or is it kind of like?
So here in Charlotte.
Let's wrap up those conversations.
I'd rather be in the office.
And so first time speaking into the mic was very effective. There we go. Hate to interrupt those conversations, but we are ready to share the panel with you. Thanks so much, guys.
So great, thank you all for participating in that. I'm Jenny Bechet. I'm the Workforce Development Program Manager with the City of Charlottesville's Office of Economic Development. And I just wanted to give you a quick housekeeping information. Restrooms are through this door, so you can either go around back or through that door. Refreshments, please help yourselves. We want you guys to be comfortable, and it's casual, so feel free to mingle as you need to. And then I also just want to point out that our panelists here today, who we're gonna have introduce and get to know, are all donating their time. So I really appreciate that not only are they full of great information, but that they're willing to share that with our community. So very excited to have them on board. And then the way this day will start is I will ask some questions for the panelists to try to get some discussion going. And then after we kind of get through some of the various topics, we're going to open it up for you all to ask your individual questions so that we can make sure that we get that information that you're looking for as well. So sound good? Okay, so we'll get started. I just want to have the panelists introduce themselves by sharing their name, their title, the company they work for, how long they've been in this recruitment field, and then what your favorite part of your job is. So name, company, how long you've been doing this, and favorite part of your job. And Steve, if you don't mind starting us off.
Yeah, my name is Steve Pekary. I'm the general manager with JW Townsend Landscapes. I've been with JW Townsend for 20 years and been hiring and managing probably for 15 plus. So I've been doing it for a while. And my favorite part of the job, it really is probably the people that I work with. I tell everybody this, my favorite part of hiring is that I get to pick the people I work with. And before that, I did not. So that is really, that's that.
I'm Allyn Sinderbrand, and I am the Human Resources Manager at JW Townsend Landscape now.
I started working in Charlottesville before I actually lived here. I was a regional HR director for ARA Services at that time, which is now Aramark, and was down here at the time that Aramark was being considered to take over the dining service account to manage the dining service account at UVA. So that goes back a while. Then came down here and started working for UVA, actually in the HR department over at on Emmett Street for a while, and then went over to Farmington Country Club to set up an HR department for them. They decided it was time that they really needed a formal HR department and went there. And in the course of about 23 years there, got to work with a lot of different agencies that are represented here today. Got heavily involved or continued to be heavily involved in workforce development and learning some creative ways to be able to do that and really integrate in the community. Spent a little time after that working for Virginia Career Works, Piedmont region with grant management, and then joined the team at JW Townsend Landscapes to help them also bring together an HR operation for the company, which is now about 115 employees, 120 employees. We have somebody starting on Friday.
Yeah.
So it's just, and I want to say that I got to meet Jenny through Virginia Career Works. You were in Culpeper at that point, and we are very, very fortunate to have her here in Charlottesville. She's just really fabulous. And so when she came down here, I was very happy to reconnect with her. And I would say that I love doing workforce development. It's always a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to really match people and careers and people and jobs. And they're, for me, that is just the most satisfying aspect of doing this.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Squillace. I'm one of the managing partners, along with my wife, of Civil Solutions. It is a consulting company based on our combined 80 years of experience working here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia and across Virginia. My experience over the past 36 years here was primarily in 4 organizations: Martha Jefferson Hospital, the Church of the Incarnation, the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce, and most recently with PVCC in the Network to Work program. I was never officially in HR, although I worked with HR in all of those areas, recruiting literally hundreds of volunteers and assisting in trying to bring new ways of thinking in terms of hiring employees. Many of you know we did that fairly successfully, and I think it's still going on with Network to Work, where we brought a different way of thinking about how companies can find and attract talent. So my wife and I both still work, as I said, in our consulting company with multiple organizations, both assisting them with organizational issues, but alongside that, we also assist in finding talent for organizations in some unique ways. So honored to be here. Thank you, Jenny. It's nice to be up here with such esteemed people.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brookes Sims, and I'm the Center Manager for the Virginia Career Works Charlottesville Center, part of the Piedmont region. I am a newbie in the workforce development world. My background has been pre-K to 12 with education, but in many aspects from nonprofits to working with different school systems in the area. I was a store manager, so I lived the retail life for Goodwill, who I've been with 5 years, who has the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which is WIOLA, a grant for participants to be able to go back to school for a trade, on-the-job training, paid work experience from 16 all the way up. So I'm new to the workforce development, but in different aspects, I've had to work with folks finding jobs, retaining jobs, even being able to deal with other aspects of life, i.e. barriers from reentry to childcare, in order to keep a job. So that's me.
I'm Roy Fitch. I am the Employment and Financial Opportunity Manager in the Downtown Job Center. The Downtown Job Center is a part of the Office of Social Equity with the city of Charlottesville. I've done this for about 5.5 years. And I guess my favorite part is the outcomes, definitely seeing people gain an opportunity, an employment opportunity that they actually want to be in. I think that's my favorite part of the job.
Great, well, thank you, guys. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna throw out a question to one of you individually, and then if any of the other panelists want to answer as well, that's their game. So Frank, I'm gonna start with you. There's been countless studies and stats shared nationwide identifying recruitment as being paramount for today's business to stay competitive and successful. Why now? Why is recruitment the big paramount piece when workforce encompasses so many different parts?
Wow, great question. I would say it's always been that way, but post-COVID or through COVID, it's really ramped up. And that is because in my mind, prior to COVID, jobs that didn't necessarily require college degrees were ones where we filled them. We need a cook, we need a landscaper, we need a whatnot, and people filled those wanting employment, but maybe not necessarily thinking they could move up in those positions or do something else with their skills. COVID changed all of that, and I see a lot of you agreeing, because it made people think, now, wait a minute, I didn't mind being a garbage picker upper for the city of Charlottesville. You know, every job is important, but I would like to do something else. So the recruitment world right now is faced with a lot more challenges where people have other opportunities. And they've recognized that in a sense because the wages have gone up, as we've seen, and there are other organizations, including several here, who are willing to assist them with the barriers that they have faced, i.e. transportation, formerly incarcerated, whatnot, that allow them to move beyond an entry-level job, which are very important. But there's more.
Feedback on that, or Steve, if we can break down recruiting into the various components, so you identify that you have a need for an employee, so you have the job description, then you've got to market that job description. There's a timeline for how long you're going to let that job be open before you start interviewing. You've got the cover letter, resume, references, background checks, interviews, offer letter, rejection letter, and then ultimately, you know, keeping resumes on file. Can you share a little bit about your perspective on those components as far as whether you see that all those pieces are necessary, or some are more important than others, or
You mean maintaining? What's
right? So the whole process of recruiting involves a lot of pieces. So in your role, do you see a need for, you know, you have to have that position posted for 4 weeks before you'll close it. But knowing that, then you've got interviews, so that's going to be another 2 weeks. You've got background checks, so that's another week. So the timeline might be 3 months from posting to hiring.
Right.
And is that necessary from your perspective as a hiring manager, or can that kind of be re-looked at post-COVID?
Post-COVID, honestly, I guess when I look at before COVID and then during COVID and after COVID, it was a little bit more challenging, but I'm not sure if it really changed that much for us. I would say, I don't know how to answer this. I would say that the length in which we leave a job posting up is dependent upon the responses that we get. Obviously, we get good ones, we close it pretty quickly and normally, but then after a while, we've had a number of job ads that sit out there and we use a lot of the usual, I guess, websites to do that. After a while, if there's a lack of interest in responses that seem to be qualified candidates, we'll close that out because they're kind of costly, and we also need to develop those ads to where we don't collect applications that we're being charged for as well. So there is a cost that goes along with those ads. And so at that point, then we either have to change direction and find different ways to recruit that person, or and when it comes to recruitment in general, is like posting job ads is just a small section of what we do. Especially with Allyn being on board, it's really more of a dynamic effort that we're making now. So I don't know if that's answering your question, or Allyn, if you'd like to
Well, just to
speak to that.
piggyback on what Steve said is that, you know, I see my job as being to facilitate this process as quickly and as efficiently as possible, effectively as possible. So we try, you know, stepping back from once the recruiting starts, it really is a matter of knowing what the need is now, what the need is a year from now, 5 years from now, but so that and so that we're able to just really do this quickly and efficiently, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we make sure that the application is one that is easy for people to fill out, do it online, and make everything available to the applicants, agencies, and to our hiring managers as quickly and efficiently as possible, so we don't get stuck along the way.
So,
And that's not answering the question. I know this for those of you who have specific posting times and things you have to do, but really what I'm trying to say is that the opportunity is to figure out a way to move it as quickly as possible, to know your job, to know your candidates, to reach those candidates, and whatever application process you have to go through is to make it work quickly.
and Roy and Brooks, what does it look like on your end where you have a job seeker who needs a job, you know, yesterday, and they're going through this job search and the challenges of applying and interviewing?
I think it's more of an understanding from the job seeker, especially if, and I'm gonna use Indeed. Indeed just gives you a job description, apply now. You apply and then they don't hear anything. So then, you know, my goal and those who I work with is, okay, do a follow-up to see if they actually receive your application. Sometimes Indeed is not the best place in the world, just depending on many facets. But one thing I always tell them is like, do research on the company, you know, call up and speak to the HR manager and ask them what is the process, because that way you know. So if they tell you it's going to be a month, then you have an idea of what that process is going to look like compared to, oh my gosh, I need a job tomorrow and you still got to do a background check. They still haven't received your references. So, and I think that's more of HR being more open to receive those calls, or as well just putting out there, like, this is our process, takes about a month. Healthcare, we know that, education, we know that too, because of the many steps you have to go through, the background check. So, and if I know you have a background, I'm gonna steer you away from a place that is gonna require you to not have a certain type of background. So, and I use Allyn and Steve, one thing we realize is that they allow people to do paper applications. So that's another thing, being still open to that. No, paper is, you know, we want to save every tree, but there are a lot of people who are not computer savvy. So, and trying to go through a application online and they're using a library where they can't ask those questions, or, you know, they go to the job center and it's busy. They don't have that person to kind of walk them through there. So to me, it's more just being open and transparent about the process so they know what to expect when applying for that position.
May I? I think what happened after COVID, in my perspective, HR perspective and recruiting, is that we seem to have lost connections. We seem to have lost the personal connections with the clients, with the candidates. And what I have found is even more critical after COVID, and it was before as well, is that for me as HR, I need to establish a relationship with you. And I need to have you help me to refer candidates to us who are a good match or have the potential to be a good match. And I'm better off, I can facilitate the process more quickly if Jenny calls me and says, I have this candidate and this is their situation. And then I'm able to think, what job could this person do? And then I can walk them through the process and make sure their application is complete. And yes, we do still accept paper applications, because we just want to make this happen. We want to make it happen as quickly and as well as possible. But I really believe that the key is post-COVID, reestablishing those relationships so that you know your clients and you can contact me and say, here's this person, and then I can work through you to make it happen. That's makes sense there.
And Roy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say communication is so important for me and it has to be consistent because at the Downtown Job Center, I'm basically partnering, I'm playing a middleman role and I'm partnering with the employers, the agency organizations that are seeking out job seekers. I'm also partnering with the job seeker to make sure that they're completing the steps that they must complete in order to gain the employment. So I think I have to have consistent communication, especially with the job seeker, to make sure that they're completing all the steps to be successful in gaining employment.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. Often someone will apply for a position and then they may get an email back, they may get a phone call back. And I know Brooks and Roy, you mentioned that, you know, some of their technology skills lack. So being able to, you know, have an email address, know how to check it, and have a voicemail, know how to check it. How much would you say that contributes to some of the job seekers not being successful in a position or missing an opportunity? And maybe what can employers do to help address some of that, maybe?
I love the idea of the having the paper application as an option. And it's interesting that in 2024, there are a lot of people who they just don't fare well with technology and computers. And we see a lot of job seekers of a variety of ages just don't fare well with following up on email, checking voicemails, and remaining consistent as far as corresponding with the employer. And so I think it's very important to have a variety of ways that a person can get in contact with the employer and look into what opportunities they have.
Did you have anything?
I echo Roy, and it is a very diverse population, and for someone to come in and at that desperate time, we are that middle person. And so, as Roy said before, it's communication, and you know, our job is to follow up with them as well. And a lot of times it's just only a couple of us that are doing that, but then just being open and being able to communicate to an employer like, hey, they did receive the email. However, let me tell you, you know, try to explain the situation. And it's funny because there are people with emails. People don't realize that if you have a Hotmail account, that ages you. You know, and so just trying to get people, you know, some of the older job seekers come in just like, hey, let's get you a Gmail, or even how to download a resume onto an employer's website. So, you know, being able to have that option of a paper application, or being able just to go into the employer's facility and be able to fill out an application either online or in paper. So just having many options that they do have. And a lot of that's just us being able to communicate to employers to find out what is out there available for them, and just being able to have accommodation for those.
So let's talk about a little bit of some of the recruiting efforts. Or strategies, do you feel that things like pre-employment tests or assessments, salary sign-on bonuses, are those things that can help increase your success of recruiting talent, or you haven't seen a good return on investment on some of those?
Well, we don't do a sign-on bonus. We do a relocation bonus, which is effective if there's somebody outside of the area that we'd want to hire. It just kind of removes that hurdle. And, you know, honestly, I'm thinking about some of our other ways that we recruit is that, a referral bonus. If you have good people within the company and they have a friend that wants to work there, that's normally a really good opportunity to hire somebody. And that encourages them to continually think about bringing more people in. I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, that's.
Do you guys do, like assessment tests?
Oh, assessment tests? No, we don't. For certain positions within the company, we will have, we will do an assessment, but most people that we hire, I'm gonna say 90% of the people that we hire, they just have to go and kind of pass that interview with the hiring manager, whether it's just determining whether they actually want to do the job, whether they know anything about what they're doing, how receptive they are to learning. Really, it's a matter of just finding good people to work for what we do anyway. I'm sure everybody has different needs, but 90% of the people that we hire just need to be able to show up on time, have a good attitude, be interested, and be a good team player, you know? And so those are the things that you try to suss out in an interview. And if they have additional plant knowledge or experience, that's great. But if they don't come to the table with the other things, it's gonna kind of be toxic in the group and it's not gonna work out. So that's, again, like I said, the thing that I like about hiring is that you get the people, pick the people you work with. It's like in the end, you have to look at this person and be like, would I want to work with this person? You know? And that is in my, you know, I know it's Allyn might think, but that's my gut instinct. A lot of times, it's like, is this person truly interested? Are they looking for an opportunity? Are they just, is mom kicking them out of the basement and tell them to go get a job, you know? And so I think in the end, I think most people want a career. And that's kind of what I hope to present and hopefully they can reflect that back in some way. So I feel better about bringing them on board with other people that are like-minded, right? So, so no, we don't do these. So really, so.
Frank, in your experience, have you seen any traction when employers offer things like sign-on bonuses, or are there other strategies that folks use that seem to get them to stand out or stand apart or be more, I guess, popular?
I would go back to something Allyn said, and I'm really a big believer that if your culture is one where somebody really wants to work because it attracts certain people from Harrisonburg, women only, a certain faith that is bantered about in a positive way in that place, that's the number one attractor. And we all say that, yes, it's the culture, but then we get down to, well, let's not necessarily focus on that as being the catch-all. And I'm still a believer that when we're recruiting, it needs to be relationships. It needs to be relational, not transactional. And I still believe in America, we have a lot of organizations that need to fill a position with a warm body, and they view the applicant as a you know, cog, not a cog, but just another widget that has to fill that, versus the relationship building along with what was just said about showing a person a career. And you can stay here a long time, and there's opportunities to move up. So, you know, sign-on bonuses, especially during COVID for healthcare professions, absolutely, and that worked. But overall, I just feel like if you put more time and effort into truly sharing your culture, and your culture is one that people want to join, you don't need all of those other bells and whistles. That's just me.
So what about other recruitment strategies like temp to hire or outsourcing with an HR recruiter? Is that something you feel like a small business would be better off investing in, or to build that culture and to create those relationships? It's better, you maybe outsource a different part of their business, but really own that recruiting strategy part. And that's open to anybody.
I would suggest the old ways are just old. And I hear that. And we've got to think differently. Let me throw out an organization that I visited a couple of years ago when I was with PBCC. It's called Grayston Bakery. If you haven't looked them up, look them up. They're in Yonkers, New York. They make brownies. And they make brownies for the Ben and Jerry's ice cream along with other brownies. They have their recruitment policy is called open door. If somebody wants a job there, they walk in the front door, they put their name and phone number on the list. And I actually did it. I went through it. No application, no resume, no interview. That's mind-blowing, but it works. And they've been in business almost 40 years. I think they had one employee, at least when I went up to visit, that somehow wormed his way in because his mom kicked him out of the basement and said, go work. Think about that compared to the layers of what we do now. I'm just saying, I'm a believer that you've got to think outside the box in today's world. And if Grayston Bakery and the open door policy is not mind-blowing, because why would somebody want to go work in a brownie factory and walk up? What are you gonna, you're gonna steal brownies? You're gonna, I mean, and what they've done for the community all around there in terms of formerly incarcerated people and people that have struggled and whatnot. It's an amazing story. And I just think we need more opportunities like that in the world of recruitment.
Yeah, I think from the employer side, what's really important is that you know what your needs are. There's not one answer to what's the best recruiting strategy, thank you, because it really has to fit, it has to work, and it has to be creative, and it has, but really the starting place is employers, what is your need? What is your need now? What's your need 6 months from now? What does your cycle look like? Where are you going? What's your strategic staffing plan? What are you going to need in 3 years or 5 years? And then build your recruiting plan around that and find out, once you know what your need is and you know basically what your candidate profile looks like, who are you looking for? Do you need entry-level people? Do you need to start building a pipeline of people? Do you need people who can come in and be promoted? Whatever you need. And then figure out where these people are and get them. I mean, it sounds simplistic, but that's really what this is all about. And the more time you take to do that and understand that, the better opportunity you have to make it happen. I mean, that's been my experience. And then you find out who's out there. And I'm going to get back to, in my experience, it is the recruiter's relationship with you, with the agencies, with the people who represent and work with the various clients who are the best way to make this happen efficiently and quickly. And then you don't get stuck with incomplete applications or no email address or no contact. If I can work with you directly, if you call me and say, I have this candidate, we'll make it happen. And really that's how to move it along. And it's the relationships, it's all the relationships. But again, in my experience, the breakdown has been the candidates trying to do this on their own for the most part. And even with, career positions where we're going out to colleges and universities, we're also working with the faculty and we're working with the career planning and placement offices. And it's a very holistic thing. So we don't go to a job fair on a college campus without having a connection with the faculty and going to do class presentations if we can, or, making it a complete relationship. Because just doing one thing isn't going to work. And if you break those relationships, if you don't have those relationships with the people, with the people who have the candidates, it in my experience, it just doesn't work as well.
So what I'm hearing in that answer is recruitment isn't just, I need to fill 5 positions, 5 are been filled, I can go do something else. Like you recruiting year round, getting your your relationships built, building awareness, finding out what the needs are and just staying on top of it, rather than waiting for a hiring manager to come say, hey, 2 people gave it a notice. And we're starting to get really busy at
Right.
maybe 3 more.
Right, exactly. And I think it's an opportunity also to go back and look at your job descriptions or look at at the positions themselves and ask yourself why. You know, why do we need a college degree for this job? Why are we making the application process so difficult? Why do we, right? We've been talking about this for a long time. You know, why do we need to do this?
You're absolutely right.
And not to be just arbitrary about it, but unless it's really a critical requirement for somebody coming into the job, you know, we're getting in our own way. We're making it really difficult for our applicants. And sometimes we have to do that remediation, if you will, or that training once the person comes to start with us. And that's sort of the strategic planning of how you get there. And I'll use, you know, English language skills as an example. Having worked with refugees and people who are non-native English speakers for a long time, the easy answer to that was start teaching ESL in your business. And this is what we did at Farmington years ago. So we had someone from Albemarle County Adult Ed who came in and taught ESL. Employees were on the clock. So they got paid for the time, we paid for the instructor and the materials. It was really, to me, a no-brainer. So we had people coming in who were, you know, skills are here, English language skills may be here. And then very quickly, we got them to the point where they were able to be, you know, to do well. It's that type of thing. So I also would say going back and looking at your jobs and particularly your entry-level jobs and saying, what do we really need and what can we offer to get people in?
I'll second that. I've challenged a lot of employers only because I've been around a long time without hesitating. And so a couple of years ago, an employer was struggling with recruiting a certain type of candidate for, let's just say, a local healthcare facility. You have 50% chance of figuring out which one it is. And their policy was absolutely no tattoos. And I said, okay, you're struggling to find people, no tattoos. Now, a baby boomer, I don't have a tattoo, but I know the mayor's got several tattoos that are not exposed right now. So if he went to that employer and admitted, they wouldn't have hired him. Now, I said, wait a minute, you're excluding an entire population, especially if younger people, half my kids have tattoos. Why? Well, it's always been our policy. Like Allyn just said, go back. Tattoos on the face as a healthcare worker, okay, I get that. But on your side, on your arm, on your back, wherever else, they changed the policy. They started getting candidates in that particular area. You have to do it. The old ways just don't work anymore.
So building on that, if a company's if they put out an ad and they've advertised their position and they either get, 20 people apply, but none of them are qualified, or they don't get anybody applying, what would your advice be? Like, what are some of the questions they should be asking themselves before they re-release it again?
I guess it would be why, like, if you're not getting good candidates or candidates at all. For example, I joke about this if we wanted to recruit out of high school and we said that we do horticulture, no kids in high school know what horticulture, that word means, right? Well, don't you want to do horticulture? Like, I don't know, So, in some ways, it's a matter of maybe you just need to change your message. If you really are just putting something out there and hoping that you're gonna get something back. Just right off, that's kind of what I would say to that.
And part of it is, again, at the beginning, before you even start recruiting for a job, is to say, once you really know what that job is, where are your candidates? Where are they? Where's your best candidate for this job? Right? And then you find them. And then so whatever recruiting or advertising you're doing, again, it's more than just one thing, but it's, is it the colleges? Is it the high schools? Is it through one of the agencies here? Whatever it is, so that posting a job is really just one thing. I am not a fan of Indeed. I'm sorry, but but it's there, it's out there, right? So what we did was we changed the way we use Indeed, so somebody can't apply directly through, hit a button and apply. Now when we post an ad on Indeed, it takes them to our website and the application. And it's only one piece of, again, the whole thing, so there is, I can't think of a job that we've advertised for, where posting on Indeed was anything more than just the place to go to apply, that we did other things around it. So that helps too. If you really know, again, it gets back to know your job and know what you're looking for. What's your best candidate? What's my ideal candidate look like, and go find them.
That saved money too, right?
And it saves money
Yeah.
too.
No,
You're
that
not
was
just
actually a
posting
great
for-
call to increase the quality of candidates, and I don't know if you know how, I'm sure you know how Indeed works, but you basically pay for candidates. And so if it's really easy for people to just hit the button, all of a sudden you run through your budget really quickly. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars pretty quickly doing that. So managing that, and Allyn has been great about that.
And then on the job seeker side, do you see a lot of people who apply for things they're not qualified for just because they're, throwing something at the wall, trying, hoping it sticks? Or is there more that they can be doing so that they're not sending out mass applications and wondering why, then they get kind of discouraged because they haven't heard back?
I think it's a combination. We do have job seekers who just hit apply. If they're actually are receiving some type, unemployment, they know they have to do 2 weekly job searches. So I'm just gonna apply to this job, and don't even care what the job is. But on the flip side is, and what Alan was talking about with the job description, is actually they would get hooked on something on the job description. So they have the experience, but then you're saying you gotta have a bachelor's degree in this, and it's preferred or recommended. They don't see nothing past that, because they know that's number one is a requirement, regardless if it's preferred or recommend. And then there's like, well, I got 20 years in this experience, but however, I don't have a degree to back up with it. Then I ain't gonna look at my application because I don't have a degree. So it's just going back and looking over a job description and just saying, what are the key components, and people get hooked on those words like preferred, recommended, if applicable. And they see that, and it's just either, I don't have it, or yes, I do. But then you go to the next one and you just keep on going down. And it's a lot of reading. If your job description is 3 pages long, you lost them after the second paragraph on the first page. So yes, there's a lot of details in the job, but then again, it's that why? Why do you want this candidate? What is the key components that you're looking for? And then that will help the job seekers see like, oh, this is all what they're looking for. I have this. And I was like, then you can bring up that conversation. It's like, well, I don't have a degree. However, I have 20 years in technology, and but I'm willing to get all the trainings. I have certain skill sets. I just don't have that degree. And that kind of brings them up with their confidence to be able to have those conversations. And then, of course, we're working on the soft skills with them as well, so that they know how to go into an interview and be able to be prepared to interview with employers.
And it's also worth grabbing some applicants that are teachable and moldable in an instance versus starting that process all over again. I mean, sometimes if a person displays solid work history, they've shown some skills that they do possess. If you can get some really good references, if you bring them in and have a conversation with them, that might be someone that you can actually use for a particular position, and not have to go through that process all over again or start that search again. So it's worth, it may be a little time consuming, but it's worth going through that the pool of 20 applicants and seeing if 1 or 2 may be able to learn on the job or gain some certifications or gain some training while they're in the process, once they start once they're hired, that may pan out for you.
So, let me also say, so with somebody like that, if you called me and said, I've got this person, even if I don't have a job posted or it's somebody you think would be interested from the employer side, and please, those of you who are doing HR for your companies or your agencies, throw something at me if I'm wrong, but the point is that this is what we do. So we can take somebody like that and say, you know, they might be good for this, and that's something that we would want to do. May not be specifically applying for a job, but it's somebody who's got interest in our field, and then we can work with it and see what we can do to find that person. And you know, for me, if it's somebody who I don't think would be necessarily a good fit for my company, I can also make a connection to somebody else. And this is what, you know, we do, HR people do. And
Yeah, I'd like to echo what both of you guys are saying, because I'm on the talent source side, which is they're coming to me to get into a new field. So a nurse who'd rather be a horticulturist, but she went to school for nursing. And so she wants to do what you do, but what she looks at the HR, it's like a wall. It feels like a wall to them, and they feel like lone rangers. So what you're saying about relationships between the training institutions, the educational institutions like UVA, the college of any
Right.
kind, or a technical school, a vocational school, and then the employers over here, they're like separate islands. And we're throwing the kids sort of graduating in college, they're sort of being thrown out as lone rangers.
right,
And they feel completely overwhelmed by it.
right.
And I have people with PhDs who are overwhelmed by it. And they've got a PhD in the field that they don't even want to be in. And so they'd rather be doing trades, and they're a historian. So
Right, but they don't know how to make that
they
connection.
don't know how to make the
Right,
connection.
right.
So that gap is being filled by a mechanical system. It's indeed, it's just
Right.
terrible.
And it doesn't
People
work,
are-
that's
They're
absolutely.
just pulling their hair out and they're bald like
Absolutely,
me.
and it's been made worse, right, and it's been made worse by COVID, because
Yeah.
those relationships were really lost during COVID. I talked to recent college graduates who did their last couple of years remotely, let's say, they don't have those personal connections to the career planning and placement offices or their faculty.
Yeah.
So, yes, that existed before, but it's worse now.
Yeah.
And this is why I really
So
believe
here's-
this, that if I can get out there and you can say to me, I have this nurse who's interested in getting
Yeah.
into horticulture, we can talk and we can
Yeah.
talk to this person, because I can find those things about the person's background and ask them the kind of questions that would show whether or not they're a good match. It's all about that match, right?
Yeah.
And some of it is just the vision to, yeah, this person has, you know, is interested and really wants to do this. And then we find something for them, and that's the beauty of this.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's very hard, and it's harder now
Well,
than
you
it
know,
was before. It
there's
takes time.
a little island of experimentation going on to solve this problem, and there's a college in Maine called Bates. And Gallup teamed up with them, and they're looking at how do we fix this very problem? So when the freshmen come in, they say to the freshmen, you don't have to pick a major. You want to be a doctor? We're going to take you to the hospitals, and we're going to show you what it looks like to be a doctor. And then we're going to give you a job in that hospital as part of your degree. So there's an internship built into, they call it cooperative education.
Right.
Yeah, and so what's happening there is there's a partnership between the college and the companies in the community.
Right.
And so they're essentially trying the students out before they graduate.
Right.
So there's all these relationships going on.
Right.
And so
Well,
Silicon
that's
Valley.
why internships, by the way, I am a true believer in internships. They are invaluable. It's like this long, you know, interview process, and we've been spending a lot of time setting up internships with various schools, and
Yeah.
so because they come in, we see them, they see us, they decided this is what they want, they go back, they talk to their faculty, they talk to other students. Internships are really so great, yeah. Thank you for saying that. I agree with you, and I think, and I feel like from the employer standpoint that what I really want to do is help, you know, make that connection.
I wanted to add also along your lines about the actual recruitment, like with applications. As I had said earlier, we have a certain area of our agency that is hard to recruit for. So my counterpart, they developed a video. So whenever they post a job description, there's a video particularly about that type of job and what it's like to work in that job. And it's really helped a lot. And they're able to get applicants that really understand what the job is, because the title may not go directly with the job. So that the actual video has really helped her do a better recruitment. And she does do a lot of internships, and she partners with all of the colleges in the area. Because there is a requirement, it's a law basically for our job that they have a undergraduate, at least in social work. So it's very hard to recruit and getting the right people. You know, I always say getting the right people on the bus, because you want that culture, but you also have to have that specialty as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you found a good way to, or an effective way to make that connection, that personal connection with given the requirements that you have
Right,
for application, and that's, yeah.
So it's been helpful. They've done better, but we're competing again with 120 social service agencies for the same candidate. So a lot of times that's very hard.
Right.
And salaries as well.
So thank you. My question was gonna be about internships and apprenticeships, but that's a strategy. How about the different generations? Is it important to have different marketing for like the Gen Zs and the Gen X and the millennials? Do you need to individualize that type of messaging when you're recruiting, or do you need to customize how you do the interview process, or is that just, you know, if you had more resources and time and all that, is that just a bridge too far?
I'll answer that, but I think it's a mistake. Because if you're looking to build a culture that's fair and consistent, offering compensation and benefits for everybody, looking at different generations is a mistake. I don't do it.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, there's a part of me that'd love to like talk about how these kids these days don't want to work, but honestly, there's a part of me, like every once in a while I'll run into something like these kids, but honestly, I run into 8 or 9 others that are really awesome, you know, and I'm actually really impressed with the kids nowadays. And I look at myself and I'm like, I don't think I was that mature when I was at that age, you know, so there is something happening. There are a lot of good kids out there, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just closer to them, but I'd rather not, I personally wouldn't want to get into the idea that we need to treat them differently or have lower expectations of them. I think they're actually pretty darn good, and I think they just need to be treated like adults, and I think they'll act like adults. You know, that's kind of how you raise kids, you know.
And in my perspective, it's just not the way to develop a recruiting strategy. Sorry, I know there's a lot of talk about different generations and what they need and what they want, but I don't look at it. That's my choice to do that, because again, I'm trying to build culture that is fair and equitable and engages everybody who works for us now and into the future.
Nobody special.
Sorry, I'm not sure that was the answer you wanted, but it just.
My thought with that is, you know, a lot of times folks will have job fairs or hiring events, and you just get one generation showing up, you know, like, and maybe you want younger people, or maybe you want, maybe all you're getting is younger inexperienced people, and you want older folks who can just hit the ground running and not have to mentor and pair up with someone, so.
I'll say that's a double-edged sword. There was a time where I went for the very best gardeners, and they'd show up and they were I'd say pre-programmed, but they had their own idea of how they were gonna do something, and maybe they didn't learn it within certain parameters, like they're self-taught or something along those lines. Nah, it'd become a nightmare. It'd become a struggle just to get them to operate within the group. And then you end up with like a really sharp kid that knew nothing, right? And so that's I think you'd have to be careful of like equating age with experience, and understand that there is a backside to that can work against you. So That's, I mean, just initially, that's kind of how I feel about that.
No, that's a good point, because we do want you to think outside the box and not just
Yeah.
judge things face value, whether it's a resume or a job description or a candidate, so
Yeah.
that's a good point. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up real quick with a lightning round of questions, and then we'll open it up to you guys to ask questions. Okay, so again, I'll ask somebody specifically, and then if any of you want to chime in, you're welcome as well. And Roy, we'll start with you. What's one thing you rethought about recruiting lately?
One thing that I've rethought.
Yeah, so like you're thinking, resumes seem really outdated, or job fairs aren't as good as they would be. I think we might need to find a different strategy or something to substitute that piece.
I'll share something that I've observed other people rethinking, which is that a lot of people seem to be going the direction of having hiring events that actually hire on the spot or provide an interview or some type of, or some step or part of the HR process to happen while they're there on the spot and potentially be offered an opportunity that they can walk away with and feel like they was productive. So I feel like that seems to be working for a lot of companies.
Brooks, if you could remove one element of the recruitment process, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, okay. One element, multiple interview process. So if they have a recruiter, they interview the recruiter, then you got the hiring manager. And then if they have if they're in a department, now you department manager that you're interviewing with. So if there's different layers of interview steps that they have to go through.
Frank, if you could add or replace one element of the recruitment process, what would it be?
I would love to get employers to understand that people who have committed crime and have served their time make, for the most part, just as good candidates as those who have not. I've worked with dozens of formerly incarcerated people and found dozens of them jobs over the past years. I took chances on people 35, 40 years ago when I was at Martha Jeff that people said, don't take a chance. And every one of the people I recruited and hired became a star in their department. And I think it's unfortunate that we have employers who continue out there to say, we can't find anybody, but have this incredible barrier to anybody that's committed a felony, even if at 18, like we all have, did something stupid and stole a car or whatever. Our penal system, we could go off on that, but people have served their time. They deserve an opportunity. And if I could change anything, it would be getting employers to understand that there are incredible people wanting to work who have served their time.
Allyn, in your opinion, what's the single best thing a job seeker can do to increase their chances of being selected for an interview?
Can I answer it? Let's look together.
Yeah. What would make a candidate most attractive? Honestly, I will say a follow-up phone call when they send their application means a lot. Yeah, so it means that they're interested, they're engaged, and they're not just clicking a button. And they're willing to talk, right? So they're not just texting. Sometimes you get people like texting you, like, oh, I just called, So that might be mine. Sorry.
No, I think that's probably good. That's such a hard question to ask. I would say that an applicant needs to have the self-confidence to know that they can do the job, and just be able to communicate that to be positive. And to have the self-confidence to know that, you know, I'm just another person, I have this job and they may be a good match for it.
Steve, what's a major red flag for you when interviewing a candidate?
Actually, no. A major red flag when they complain about their past work. Yeah, when it's everybody else's fault. And they have like a really short timeline between every other job, like they've been employed for the past 2 years at 5 different places. So there are just so many red flags out there, and honestly, and at some point, you can tell the difference between somebody that legitimately made a mistake and they're willing to own up to it, or there's something that happened in the past that, okay, maybe it wasn't all their fault. At that point, you have to dig into it a little bit, but I would say, maybe overconfident, I don't know what you consider it, you know, but yeah, those two things would be the big red flags for me, yeah.
Roy, what's the biggest thing you dislike about someone's resume?
I name a bunch.
You got a list? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think, for me, I think it's the, length. I still see resumes 2 and 3 pages long. And it would be nice if they could condense that and share either in the interview process or share in a supplemental page or something, the years of experience that might not be as current as some of the other past experiences, but I think definitely the length and I think that would be it, the length.
Brooks, what is one common theme you see in job seekers, no matter their age, education, background? What seems to be one common thing you see when they come and meet with you?
I would say it's the desire for looking for a new job or a new opportunity. And it's emotional investment, and building that rapport with them, as well as, you know, being able to listen to them. And, you know, they're just not somebody just coming in and building that rapport, and just seeing like how they really want to go back to work. And they're telling you, these are the reasons why I can't, these are the reasons why I got let go, these are the reasons why I haven't worked. And being able to take that and be able to now build that career pathway, that plan for them for their next chapter in their life.
Franks, what's one common theme you see in a company's recruitment efforts, no matter their size, industry? What's something that everyone does maybe without thinking, rethinking it?
I think Alan hit it on it earlier. There's still this idea that you have to have a monster employee job responsibility, all, you know, 8, 9 pages of everything and it doesn't necessarily relate to what they're going to be doing every day. You could really, not unlike a resume as an employer, get down to what are you really gonna do? What skills are we looking for and whatnot? And for some reason, employers, at least the ones we've worked with, still have these incredible long job descriptions and requirements sometimes that have nothing to do with the job. And it's like, wait a minute, that was 20 years ago. You needed to know how to speak Spanish. It's probably the reverse of that, but you get what I'm saying. But you don't need that today, or vice versa in that particular case. And I don't understand why employers still feel that they have to lay out, at least on paper, all of the things. That's where that relational thing comes in with an interview. Hey, Anthony, you know, you're a boomer, but you're gonna have to use this to communicate to the 30-year-old supervisor, because that's the way we do
Oh,
it.
yeah, I echo that, Frank, because my clients will look at that list of 10 to 12 job tasks, and they can't tell what's the primary job functions you're gonna be doing most days, most of the day, every day, and which ones are like 10% of the month.
Right.
They can't tell. And they can't tell, well, the employer, it just cracks me up. They'll say, I want like a strategic vision, but I want you to get down to nuts and bolts too. And back to assessments that you were saying, Steve, that you maybe want to do is like, typically people don't have both aptitudes. Like you can't be both a visionary and a concrete person. And so the employer is sort of creating this sort of schizophrenic thing.
Right.
That like nobody can really meet.
Right.
Yeah, and so the person who maybe is leaning toward one side of that talent scale has to say, yeah, I don't really want to do like half of that stuff, you see, so I see it all the time in those job requirements, they're like laugh out loud. Unaware of aptitude and how aptitude works, it's just really.
And I think that then it becomes incumbent upon us as the employers to be able to see how you develop that career progression and start hiring people for internships and then entry-level positions and then build them, train them and prepare them to move up within the organization, because you're absolutely right. And the best people who become the assistant management level and up are people who you've grown internally, because they know the technical part of it, and then they're able to move into managerial and supervisory positions. And that's where training comes in too, where you need to help give people the soft skills, HR along the way, right? So that they can go from a line level position up to supervision. But it really is that vision of, what aptitude does this person have? What potential does this person have? This is what, if I have to pick the best thing about the job, it's being able to see that and be able to say, this is a nurse, but she really has the potential to be and the interest and the passion to go into landscaping or horticulture.
Exactly.
Well, I want to be mindful of our time, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the floor. You guys want to ask questions to our panelists? And then we will wrap up with just a couple resources we have available to help you all, and then so does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question for Allyn. You talked about the application, and our original application was way too long. And when we cut it back, the applications went up by like 50%. But now we have a two-step application process. And the initial step is so easy, where someone can just submit basically their email and telephone number, and then they'll be invited to, submit a resume. And so that's kind of a mixed bag, because we get a lot of people that it increases the workload of our personnel manager, because he'll get a lot of interest, but that means that he's got to follow up and call somebody who hasn't submitted a resume. And sometimes, we hired a really good foreman who is not super, tech savvy, and submitted the bare minimal without a resume and turned out really good. But you also have to weed through, other applications. So I just wanted your thoughts and maybe anybody else's perspective on, an effective application.
So that's interesting. And I'm sorry, I can't remember. Tell me which company you're with.
Sure, it's Design Electric.
Yes, okay. So what made you decide to go to a two-step application process?
That was more of our tech managers' thoughts. We integrated the application system with Workforce Go, which we have an ATS system within that. And so that was a feature that you could create a two-step process. So that's why we switched it.
And so how does that work? Is it like there's a job ad and then it says click here to learn more? And then they just provide some simple information and it goes to somebody and then they reach back out to them? Is it a phone call or do they just eventually an email, something's emailed back to them to complete?
So they get an automated message after they show interest. So, bare minimum, they can put, their email, phone number, name, city. And then it says, we've received your initial interest, please submit a resume. And then they have an option to submit a resume.
So is it working in terms of the application, the volume and the quantity of the applicants that you're getting?
The volume has certainly gone up, and I would say it's gone up quite a bit. And I would say mostly people do follow up and submit a resume, but there are also a lot of more like inexperienced, unqualified candidates, and there's more people that our personnel manager has to kind of like follow up on.
Yeah, and some of the answer to that really depends on what's working for you. I know that sounds kind of weird, but the point is that for me, I would rather get more applications or more inquiries and take the time to get on the phone and talk to the person and vet them a little bit more. And then get them to Steve or get them to the hiring manager, because I can think somebody I can make a match there if there is a match. But I also know that I need to do this quickly and effectively. So what I'm not clear about is this slowing it down or is it working for you in terms of getting the applicants? And it may not be a two-step application process. I'm not sure, but somebody needs to be there. There needs to be that personal contact quickly enough so that you can then, or your personnel, whoever's doing this can then refer them on.
And so are you advertising in the same place as well? Or did you change because of the method, you can put it in more locations?
We have it on several locations. So we have it on Indeed, not your favorite, and
Sorry.
several job boards. I think it's on like Glassdoor as well. And then, also from the marketing side, I'm pushing it out on like Facebook ads, free job boards, with just the link that will bring them to that very simple initial process.
Right. And so you mentioned ATS, so this is an applicant tracking system that you have?
Mhm.
And then so it goes automatically from wherever you're recruiting to the application process and then uploads it to your HRIS?
Right.
Okay. So there's a lot of automation in there. And to me, having been through a system like that before, you got to figure out where that personal connection needs to be.
Right.
Right. And so I can't answer specifically in terms of the process, but it's certainly worth looking at in terms of, are you getting the right candidates? Are they being followed up quickly? Do you want a broader group of candidates or do you really want to narrow it down? And that would determine, what to do. There really is, I don't have a set answer for you. However, there may be some opportunity. Jenny's going to talk about this later for Office of Economic Development to help in terms of having someone come in and look at this for you.
Right. So you're saying just make sure that in the process, we involve human connection more and make
Yeah,
sure
really what I'm
that-
saying is make sure you're getting your candidates, that your applicant flow is what you want it to be. And tweak it from there.
Okay.
The idea of doing this initial sort of screening application is interesting if it's working for you and not slowing down the process. Right? And then some of this gets back to what Brookes was saying about the application process and the interview process and the hiring process needs to be streamlined enough so that somebody's application isn't sitting there because the manager doesn't have time to interview them or it gets slowed down in the process or reference checks or whatever. These are all things that we need to do as employers to make sure that this is going through. The process is happening quickly so that we're hiring people we need when we need them. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
This isn't a question, this is just follow-up, just because it's so interesting sitting in a meeting. Like, I don't recruit, so I'm the least experienced person in the room. I have no expertise in this whatsoever. But sometimes I think when you think of things from a whole different perspective, like not doing what everybody else in your industry is doing, it's kind of interesting. And I remember we were hitting this problem. We wanted to get more candidates for some roles that we were filling, but we were struggling to get them to communicate the right information to us. So it got really inefficient. We didn't have time to look through everybody. but we needed to broaden the pool. And so we actually ended up doing like a voicemail. So if you didn't submit your email, it was just leave us a voicemail. And the recording on the voicemail was answer these two questions. What is your background experience in this? And some other random question. And I feel like for us, it separated out the people who will take the ownership to actually go leave that voicemail, because that weeded out, like, if the people won't dial a 1-800 number and leave a voicemail, then that shows me, okay, maybe they were just checking the box and filling out applications, or, you know, trying to impress their mom or whatever. But if they left the voicemail, then I could get a little bit about how they communicated without me having to make the phone call, have the appointment. And I could maybe dig a little, if somebody didn't have a resume, I could get the information I needed. And so I don't know that that would make it more efficient, but I just encourage employers, you know, thinking like, we just had to come up with that because we had no idea how we were supposed to be doing this. Just thinking about like, what's a different way that would answer, like, that would get you to that net goal that you're trying to achieve, but maybe totally different than how everybody else is doing it. We got some of our best candidates that way, so.
Yeah, and
it's just
you
kind
know,
of
for you,
interesting for a certain
because,
role.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so go ahead. What were
No,
you saying?
because of what you do, you need people who have good communication skills,
Right,
right? And good
so-
customer service.
And we could weed them out really quickly.
That's
Not,
a
I don't
great way
want
to
to
do
stereotype, but if they can't communicate to a certain level in a voicemail, we probably, for what we needed, it probably wouldn't be a match, but for some other people, that might not be like the highest criteria. So I don't know, it's just interesting to think like, what is the net goal? And are there other ways to get to it that are completely unlike what anyone has ever suggested before, and then just try it?
Right, if it works
once
for
or
you.
twice.
And I just want to say that, you know, you really do a lot of recruiting, whether you know it or not. You are out in the community and you are, you know, the culture of your business, and you are the personal ambassador for your business. And, you know, you have established a relationship so that somebody would want to come and work for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so
But we
don't
all
think
do
of it
that.
way.
We all
Yeah,
do
we
that,
don't
you
have to
know.
run ads
I
as
go
much.
grocery shopping and
but
I'm
yeah.
still, you know, talking to people about what they do, and I've hired some people when I was at Farmington from different food places, because just I developed a relationship with them, and, you know, I was Farmington to them. I am JW Townsend Landscapes now out in the world, and I'm always recruiting. I wouldn't steal anybody away, I promise, but you know, that's just the mindset. It's looking for people who have the potential to, and interest in my business, what I'm doing. Banks are another good place.
Any other questions?
So on that topic of different ways of doing things, two things come to mind, and I'm curious if this prompts others that you have or recommend. One is group interviews. So when I interview people, one of my most important missions is to communicate the mission, vision, and values of the company, because that match is the most important thing. If they don't match the mission, vision, values, they're not gonna last. Second, and what I've learned is that can be a group interview, right? Because everybody's getting the same speech from me or from the owner. It's a way of simplifying, especially for small businesses, making sure that that's communicated and people are on the same page. The second thing that I've stumbled onto is day in the life interviews, where we have the candidate sign an NDA and come and actually be in the business for a whole day. Because then we can see, do they actually want to do the work? And the people who work with them, is this a person that you like to work with? And I turn to the other people around the table and say, what do you think? And there have been several occasions where I've said, I think it's a pretty good candidate. And one of my teammates has said, never, no way, not gonna work in this role. That's really valuable for me because I'm the head of the HR function. I could have made a bad decision without that input. So I'm curious, given those two examples, are there other things like that, either group interviews, day in the life, or something else that you see working really well to get great people into right seats?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are good points. And actually, in the end, the way that I pitch that to people is that I say, listen, it does you no good if you show up and in 2 weeks you realize you don't want to do this job.
Yeah.
It doesn't do us any good either. So I think the day in the life, I've never put it that way, but that is actually a good way.
You do this.
Yeah, we do what we call ride along. They come in for a half day, they hop in my truck, we go look at job sites, we show them people doing the job. For 90% of our positions, if it's a higher level position, a sales position, they should have the experience at that point to know kind of what they're getting into. But yeah, that's, in general, yes, that does work.
At what point do you do group interviews?
Very first thing. So it's
what
essentially an introduction to the business. This is what we do, how we do it.
Yeah,
these
no,
are the
no, but I
things-
say who comes in for a group interview, who's invited, where, at what point are they in the application process? Where does it fit in?
So they've been screened for right fit based on their resume and cover letter.
I can tell you I don't do that normally, just my feedback. What I do is I stage it though, like if I feel like I have a good candidate that comes in, I tell the people that I want them to meet. Like, look, this dude's coming in at 2. If I like them, we'll be walking through and we'll come into your office. If I say thank you very much and they leave, then they know that that's a sign that it's not a good fit, right? So that's how I don't know whether that works or not, the group interview thing. I've always been advised against that because you really want the candidate to let down their guard as quickly as possible. Because anybody can be like a really great candidate if they're putting on a front. You want them to drop their guard a little bit so you get to know them some. So, and I feel like when you have more people there, then they're a little bit more on edge and it takes a little bit longer to get to that point. That's.
Yeah, and to be clear, there's a one-on-one interview component as well.
There is.
It's just so let's say recently I interviewed 12 candidates for the same position. In those one-on-one interviews, I spent 15 minutes saying exactly the same thing. And this was because it was.
Before the group interview?
So it was an on-site interview where I didn't have the luxury of setting it up as a group interview and then individual interviews. So the educational institution had given me 30-minute blocks all day with a dozen people, but I repeated the same thing again and again and again. Hopefully I got better at it. But it would have been better to do that once with them and then to have, as a group, and then to have staged individual interviews where I get to know them and they can respond to the core values and the mission that I presented only once.
So I just kind of want to chime in on kind of both sides as far as interviewers and the whole interview process. When, if you have a team or individual that's interviewing, to me, when, I've been on panels when they're like, I don't think that I will work well with them. That's really, when you do that, it's hard to get diversity because if you have someone that's, that doesn't have the same background as them, didn't go to the same type of schools, and they may feel that they could work well with, but someone that's just like them. And then that's how you kind of keep getting the same people. It's hard to break that mold if you don't have anyone else to be on that panel or to kind of speak differently to say, well, we need to break the mold. If we want to break into a new market, we kind of get the same thing. Someone who maybe went to a predominantly white high school or predominantly white university and then they, on a panel, they have 2 candidates, one went to HBCU, they're like, I think I may have worked better with this one. Because he or she kind of looks more like me. Anyway, so we all could get in trouble if we just kind of go by our coworkers or people that's working there currently. You could get forever the same type of people. So.
Another little trick that I do, just thinking about it, is changing the not having that typical sit down, stare at each other kind of interview situation. Like I'll take people for walks. And it's just, for me, I'm kind of a extrovert, right? But in the end, I like walking around. I like walking around landscapes. I like getting out and then just it helps them lower their guard as well. So meeting somebody in a different location other than in an office kind of helps get to know people a little bit better too.
Also, this is off the top of my head without knowing anything about what you're doing, and if it's working for you, keep doing it. If you're telling people up front what your mission and values and vision is, a smart interviewee is going to be able to regurgitate that back to you to show that they know that and understand that, as opposed to interviewing somebody in a way that sort of extracts that from them. So you can say, yes, this is somebody who basically has the same vision as we're looking for. Somebody, even if not that at that level, to be able to say this is somebody who'd be a good match and has the potential to fit in well in this company. If you're telling them that, as opposed to asking the kind of questions that would get at those.
Right.
Just a thought.
Yeah, great question. And I try to pair those. So I have a set of questions that match with our core values that ask about their experience where they've demonstrated those things. And it's not a one-to-one match so that they're like, oh, this is that question. But I find if we're not forthright with who we are and the things that they're going to be measured against. So we have these 5 core values. We're going to look at them every 90 days. And I expect you to live up to them. This role has these 5 expectations. You're accountable for these 5 things in this role. are these things that you're excited about. So to your question of like, what am I gonna be doing every day? These are the things that you're responsible for.
Yeah, that level of communication is
That's good.
good, yeah.
And I'm assuming that then that's on your website and that's in all your recruiting material too, so those things are getting out into who you
We're
are.
limited for compliance reasons, but yes, I mean, it's as public as it can be in the recruiting
In terms
process.
of- Right. in terms of recruiting. Interesting. And it's working?
Yeah.
Is it resulting? That's great. That's great. That's helpful to everybody, I think.
Well, I wish we could spend all day, because I know this is a huge topic, but I just wanted to share a few resources that our office, the City of Charlottesville Office of Economic Development, has available to city businesses. And then I also just want you guys to connect with some of these great folks and with each other, because like they were all saying, it's all about relationship building. And there's a lot of free resources that you all can tap into to get connected to candidates, to share your jobs and things like that. So I want to make sure you guys have time for that. I do have some handouts about the City of Charlottesville Office of Economic Development resources. So I'll just hit the highlights and then I'll leave those on this table for anyone who's a city business who wants to follow up with that. One is our Go Hire program. So if you are looking to hire some new folks, we have funding that could help subsidize the salary for your new hires. We also have workforce training funding. So if you have existing staff or you have a new hire and you want them to get trained or get a certificate, get upskilled on something, we can pay for that as well. You get to pick which, if you need someone, if you want a certificate, we can connect you to those programs available. But if there's a specific resource that you want them to use, that's also an option as well. So that's our Go Hire program. And then we have a Ready to Work program, which is basically, we give 20 hours of soft skills training. So all those folks who said, people don't show up on time, don't want to work. We try to educate folks on the importance of that. So they have 20 hours of soft skills training on 12 different modules. Once they graduate, they get a certificate and then they get connected to a participating city employer for a guaranteed interview. There's no cost to participate in that program. And then finally, we have what we're calling customized workforce solutions, which is a new program we're kicking off where we have funding for businesses to have a consultant come in. So if you needed help with Frank or Alan or somebody else, they can come in and look at a specific problem you're having, whether it's recruitment, repayment, and they can give you that expertise and give you some solutions. So that's available as well. So again, I'll leave those on the table for you if you want more information, as well as my business card, so that I can follow up with anybody. And then again, please make sure you interact with these folks because the Downtown Job Center has free resources. Virginia CareerWorks has free resources. We've got some great consultants and some amazing experience. So I want you all as well. And then I'm going to have Anne Marie close us out. But I do want to thank everybody for participating. This has been a lot of learning for me as well. So I appreciate that.